1 Samuel 29 and 30 today. Apologies that there have not been any videos for the last couple of days. Just to bring up up to speed with the context, David has been in the ascendancy in terms of the Lord being with him and giving him victory. Saul's been getting more and more jealous, recognising that the kingdom's heading David's way. It's got so dangerous for David that he's had to leave the country and he's been with the Philistines, pretending to fight for the Philistines while constantly fighting against Israel's enemy. But now he gets himself into a real pickle as the Philistines go to war against the Israelites. Let's find out how God rescues him from that and provides through a further disaster. The Philistines gathered all their forces at Aphek, and Israel camped by the spring in Jezreel. As the Philistine rulers marched with their units of hundreds and thousands, David and his men were marching at the rear with Achish. The commanders of the Philistines asked, "What about these Hebrews?" Achish replied, "Is this not David, who was an officer of Saul, king of Israel? He has already been with me for over a year, and from the day he left Saul until now, I have found no fault in him." But the Philistine commanders were angry with Achish and said, "Send the man back, that he may return to the place you assigned him. He must not go with us into battle, or he will turn against us during the fighting. How better could he regain his master's favour than by taking the heads of our own men? Isn't this the David they sang about in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." So Achish called David and said to him, "As surely as the Lord lives, you have been reliable, and I would be pleased for you to serve with me in the army. From the day you came to me until today, I have found no fault in you, but the rulers don't approve of you. Now turn back and go in peace. Do nothing to displease the Philistine rulers." "But what have I done?" asked David. What have you found against your servant from the day I came to you until now? Why can't I go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" Achish answered, "I know that you have been as pleasing in my eyes as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the Philistine commanders have said, he must not go up with us into battle. Now get up early, along with your master's servants, who have come with you, and leave in the morning as soon as it is light." So David and his men got up early in the morning to go back to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. David and his men reached Ziklag on the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They had attacked Ziklag and burned it, and had taken captive the women and everyone else in it, both young and old. They had killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. When David and his men reached Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. David's two wives had been captured, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, "Bring me the ephod." Abiathar brought it to him. And David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them?" "Pursue them," he answered. "You will certainly overtake them, and succeed in the rescue." David and the 600 men with him came to the Besor valley, where some stayed behind. 200 of them were too exhausted to cross the valley, but David and the other 400 continued the pursuit. They found an Egyptian in a field and brought him to David. They gave him water to drink and food to eat, part of a cake of pressed figs and 2 cakes of raisins. He ate and was revived, and for he had not eaten any food or drunk any water for 3 days and 3 nights. David asked him, "Who do you belong to? Where do you come from?" He said, "I'm an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite. My master abandoned me when I became ill 3 days ago. We raided the Negev of the Kerethites, some territory belonging to Judah, and the Negev of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag." David asked him, "Can you lead me down to this raiding party?" He answered, "Swear to me before God that you will not kill me or hand me over to my master, and I will take you down to them." He led David down, and there they were, scattered over the countryside, eating, drinking, and revelling, because of the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until the evening of the next day, and none of them got away except 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing. Young or old, boy or girl, plunder or anything else they had taken. David brought everything back. He took all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock, saying, "This is David's plunder." Then David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him, and who were left behind at the Besor valley. They came out to meet David and his men with him. As David and his men approached, he asked them how they were. But all the evil men and troublemakers among David's followers said, "Because they did not go out with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered. However, each man may take his wife and children and go." David replied, "No, my brothers, you must not do that with what the Lord has given us. He has protected us and delivered into our hands the raiding party that came against us. Who will listen to what you say? The share of the men who stayed with the supplies is to be the same as that of him who went down to the battle. All shall share alike." David made this a statute and ordinance for Israel from that day to this. When David reached Ziklag, he sent some of the plunder to the elders of Judah, who were his friends, saying, "Here is a gift for you from the plunder of the Lord's enemies." David sent it to those who were in Bethel, Ramoth, Negev, and Jattir, to those in Aroer, Siphmoth, Eshtemoa, and Rachel, as to those in the towns of the Jerahmeelites and the Kenites, to those in Hormah, Bor Ashan, Ather, and Hebron, and to those in all the other places where he and his men had roamed. So here David is in a tight spot. He's encamped with the Philistines, pretending to be on their side while all the time raiding the enemies of God's people. And now the Philistines muster for battle against Israel, and David's caught up with this. And God in his kind providence causes the other Philistine kings to say to the king that David is hiding behind. He can't come with us. We don't want him here. He could cause trouble. And you sense the relief of David being told that, and then David wants to know what he's done wrong. He's kind of thinking, "David, shut up, don't just accept it." But I guess if he accepted it too easily, that could have looked suspicious. I don't know. But remarkably, God rescues him from this right mess that he's in, and he's then sent home. And 3 days later, as they get home after a long journey, they find that their town has been ransacked, and all their families have been kidnapped, and all their belongings have been taken. And so the men just weep, absolutely devastated by all that's gone on. And understandably, perhaps, they turn on David. And David is greatly distressed because the men are talking of stoning him. Each one is bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. You can understand that anger and that anxiety, can't you? That you've lost everything. You've lost your loved ones. And so often we deal with that by thrashing out at those around us. And David's greatly distressed in all of this too. He's lost as well. And yet, powerfully, we're told in verse 6 that he found his strength in the Lord his God. He's lost everything. He's being blamed for it by everyone else. His life's at risk. Where do you turn when that happens? And David found his strength in the Lord his God. And that's the invitation for all of us to 1 Peter 4, 1 Peter 5, to cast our anxieties on the Lord, for he cares for us. We can come to him in such dire circumstances, and we can trust him. We can find our strength in him. It's interesting then that David inquires of the Lord as to what he should do. Should he pursue the raiders? Will he overtake them? Will he get everything back? And the Lord makes it very clear to him that he will. And this is, again, a good pattern for us, isn't it? That having found his strength in the Lord, then David is inquiring of the Lord. In the book of James, we're told to ask wisdom. If anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of the Lord, who freely gives. We need to be a people who find our strength in the Lord, but also inquire of the Lord for the wisdom we need for the practical details of life. And then they go chasing after these folks. They find someone who's been abandoned by the raiding party, a slave, and he leads them to the raiders, and they recover everything, remarkably everything. And then as they return to some of the men who couldn't pursue with them, they'd run out of energy, they collapsed on the roadside, and some of the more selfish contingent of David's party are saying that we shouldn't be sharing the plunder with these lot. They're wasters. They didn't make it. They haven't done any work. We'll keep it for ourselves. Yes, they can have their families back, but that's it. And David says, no, not at all. What's the principle? The Lord's given us the victory. The Lord's enabled us to recover not just our plunder, but all the stuff that's been taken from other places. And that's not how we behave with what the Lord gives us. He has protected us and delivered into our hands the raiding party that came against us. And so we're going to share with everybody the abundance and the riches that the Lord has given us. And this is just such a beautiful picture, isn't it, of grace. All that we have as Christians is from the Lord. It's not because of our works, not because of what we've achieved, not because of what we have done. And therefore we will want to gladly share everything we have with others, perhaps others who have not got the energy levels we have, others who have not got the opportunities that we have had, others who have perhaps not got the Christian family to support them, or the finance because they're out of work, or for lots of other reasons. We're going to actually want to share the abundance of good things we have with others. Clearly there are boundaries to that. Paul in the New Testament talks about those who, in 1 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians, those who are just lazy and bone idle, and he's saying if you're not going to prepare to work, you don't eat. Where you can, you ought to serve, but these folks in the story with David are just exhausted. They've collapsed, they've got nothing else to give, and therefore out of God's grace the plunder is shared with them, and so that's a great principle for us. So we find our strength in the Lord, we inquire of the Lord, and then we give God the glory in all that we have as we generously share it with those around us. And we need to ask God's help to live like this. We're grateful that the true King Jesus models such a life for us, and we seek to follow in his footsteps now.